everybody. Welcome to the Buck Brief. On this episode, Gabrielle Cuccia is with us. She's formerly of the Trump White House, One America News, and now she does some great stuff out there in the commentary world and hangs with my friend DC Drano. So she's in the fight. Gabrielle, good to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you, Buck. Hello, everybody.
So immigration, Biden talking about basically doing a mass backdoor amnesty. Is this a panic maneuver? Was this the plan all along? What do you think?
Okay, so first thoughts is it's the plan all along because if Biden is actually running for president, which I still am under the impression that he actually won't make it on the ballot. I really don't think that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. All roads lead to old and decrepit. But if he needs to pull out a landslide, if he ends up leaving that election or that campaign and someone else comes in place from the Democratic Party, they need to at least make sure that they can garner, banking on 1.1 million votes, of which would be the 1.1 million of those that are illegal aliens who are married to U.S. citizens would automatically gain the right to vote. So, of course, you can just bank on those people voting Democrat. So this is definitely, writing's on the wall. I say this all the time. Of course, this is during election season. So yes, it's about elections. It truly is. And it's bizarre to me. It's certainly at this point, if you want to even go into a security aspect of it, I used to be a security contractor as well. And I'm just looking at the fact that Chinese nationals coming into the United States up 8,000% since 2021. And that was based on numbers from 2024 fiscal year, which clearly is not finished yet. So the future is not looking bright. And this is just exactly what those that want a globalist world want. Not to sound doom and gloom, but.
So I assume you had a security clearance then, right?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you probably never left classified information in your garage at your beach house or papered your walls with it. And if you had, you would have gotten in trouble, unlike the Bidens.
100%. 100%. But it doesn't matter. I just kind of wish that my last name was something more like Biden's. I'm just going to throw this out here for you for a hot second. If anybody knows, Biden's actually is a derivative of a word for a genius class of plants. And it means devil's pitchfork, devil's bootleg. So,
really?
It does. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, I just spew out my thoughts on Twitter, and then sometimes people see it, sometimes they don't. No one really saw this one, but it's true. So like Biden's evil, it's in the name. Just when you talk about, the tactics of immigration or law and whatever it may be, these things are happening not by pure surprise anymore. And that's the issue, I think, for a lot of conservatives. But then people that aren't interested in politics, they have this desensitization, to what's actually going on in the world. And they feel so small, like they have no utter say, truly. And how can you ever have any say? Because I would also make the argument in today's world, these policies are being run amok because we started even back, I dare say, during Bush, that states were allowing illegal immigrants, those enemies of the state, even, Chinese nationals, to obtain driver's licenses. At one point, you could show maybe a tax ID, maybe you show some sort of document. And now these days, as of 2023, and I'll, before I even get there, let me just back up for a hot second. That influx of states making those decisions actually happened under Obama's watch. About 10 states. We're hitting almost a quarter now. I believe it's 19 or 20 at this point in the United States. But now we have other states. I believe it was Colorado. Yes, it was Colorado about a week ago. They've totally just threw caution to the wind on these illegal immigrants having to prove that they have a tax ID or showing any sort of citizenship to any other country. They can actually just provide expired documentation, and it's unverified. So this is just the place that we're in. I know I just took you on a whole little trip, but that could go forever.
I think that the problem with illegal immigration is that it's actually become so wide. All of the problems are so widespread, and it's such a massive issue now that to begin to talk about or to begin the process of fixing it, or at least stopping it from getting worse, almost sounds like you're detached from the reality, right? It's so bad that to talk about it, it's like all the houses are on fire, and you're like, well, where do I get a hose? Well, all the houses are already on fire.
Well, the problem is who's really holding the hose and who's managing the water that comes out? About 2 weeks ago, Optica Foundation is an organization that bolsters science research, and they're involved with a lot of universities here in the U.S. And they actually just got caught secretly being funded by Huawei, which we know is a conduit to the CCP. And this was happening in Washington, D.C. about 2 weeks ago, and no one really talked about it. I haven't heard any members of Congress on the left or the right speak out about this. And so much so that Optica Foundation is acting very guilty, because once they were caught, about 2 weeks ago, they gave back all the money to Huawei from 2024 and the last 2 years. So alarm bells to me definitely go off in that sense. And that just kind of just is a full, everything's kind of feeding into itself. Is it where is the best interest? You talk about the Bidens. I don't think they have our best interest. They have their own interests. You look at someone like Steve Bannon, what's happening to him right now. I mean, we shouldn't even be surprised that that's happening, unfortunately, because think about all the people that are in prison for J6, Jake Lang to be one of them. I just spoke to him last week in a matter of a few days of doing a news hit with him and him telling the truth and the experience of his solitary confinement. All of his modes of communication were confiscated and he's now with zero contact confinement. So
why would he be? I mean, we're covering a lot of ground here and moving
Yeah, I
around,
know.
but I find it interesting. No, it's fine. I've been covering the J6 thing with Julie Kelly for a while. Putting her reporting forward and having her call on radio. And one thing that has been just astonishing and pretty terrifying to me the whole time is this solitary confinement order for people who are nonviolent, even in the crimes they allegedly committed. Right? It's not like, oh, I didn't do the murders, but you're going to hold me in solitary because you're afraid for the public safety because you think I did. They didn't do anything violent, but they're still being held in solitary. Like, how did that happen to the guy you just mentioned?
I mean, I can't even answer the how because I'm still trying to honestly piece together, even just in his specific case, the how. I still don't understand it. It's sometimes it really is a matter of, those forces and the intelligence agency, those that might be a little bit higher in government, that are honing in on just people who are at the right place at the right time for them, which would be the wrong place in the right time for us. But at the same time, I look in the scope of some, parallel that to, what's happened with the verdict, with guilty verdict, right? Sham verdict for Trump. But then history in some sense is kind of just repeat itself. It's not that I'm saying that we shouldn't be fighting and that we don't need to not talk about this. We absolutely do. And the conservative party needs to do a hell of a lot better because that's why people like Steve Bannon are getting hit now too. It started at the bottom. Everybody thought it was fine. Now it trickles up to the top. Now, if someone like Trump say that he ended up behind bars, which, good luck to the Biden regime for that. Seriously, because I'll be at the front door. I'll break in, no problem. But I look at like history genuinely, and you look at somewhere like the Czech Republic. I mean, they had a huge revolution, the Velvet Revolution, which was all about fighting communism. And it was who's the guy? Václav Havel.
Václav Havel. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, see you know. That's good. You can pronounce his name better than me. But he served in prison for 4 years and then became the president of what was then Czechoslovakia. So maybe that's just the playwright.
Do you think there's a reality here where Trump might run and win from prison?
Yeah. I don't think I've said this a lot lately, and I really do believe it. It's not me just like trying to make a joke or anything like that. But I think at some point down the road, we all thought, oh my goodness, things are just so crazy. They cannot possibly be true. And I'm like, it should be the inverse. Things are so crazy at some point that they ought to be true. And it's not that hard when you really look to find the truth in that. Whether you're following the money, you're following relationships of people that have been members on Capitol Hill or at the White House or whatever it may be. Like, it's all there. The problem, I think, now is one, there's that desensitization, but at the same rate, there's access to information, which is incredibly helpful for people that really want to uncover the truth. But it's like it's almost like overload. So it takes time to sift it out and piece things together. I think people get really excited and just want to start like putting out little morsels of information they might have found and then dump it on Twitter. And then everybody starts writing a narrative and goes a little AWOL. But yes, to answer your question, I do think that there is a reality of that. I will not rule that out.
Yeah, let's talk about something that has to do with not J6 prisoners, but weaponization of the DOJ, and that's the possible Bannon imprisonment. Let's get to that in a second. First, from our sponsor here, Porter and Company. Look, Porter Stansberry is somebody I've known for a decade. The guy is brilliant, and he did something recently that a lot of people would think doesn't make any sense at all. He cut his salary to $1 a year. Why would he do that? Well, he says it's because he's found a much better way to save and get paid. Porter says there's essentially a new form of money in America. It's making some people very rich, and the richest people in America are to use it. You can too. It's not Bitcoin. It's not gold. You got to check out what Porter's talking about here. Watch Porter's latest detailed presentation online at secretcurrency2024.com. He details how to protect and grow your wealth in the years to come using America's new money. I doubt you'll see this discussed anywhere else in this way. Take a few minutes, go check out Porter's fascinating insights, secretcurrency2024.com. That's secretcurrency2024.com. Do you think they will really lock up Steve Bannon over a congressional over contempt of Congress?
Um, I want to say no. I do find it really odd. I don't know if anyone else has kind of talked about this. I do find it odd that the sentencing has just been ruled out when they expect him to report to this correctional facility in Connecticut on July 1st. That timeline is just incredibly short. It's really hard for me to wrap my head around that genuinely just that this would actually happen, but it is
So wait,
alarming that
so Bannon is supposed to turn himself
yeah,
into a federal facility July 1st?
July 1st is what I had just seen today. And that doesn't match up to me. I don't even see that ever being possible. It would riddle me any time that a court case has ever actually moved so speedily. So I don't know what the deal is there. If there is, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I do think it's BS, and it's kind of I mean I know probably spare the commentary, but I just it's like an alarm, and it's for those in the conservative movement too. You know, it's like everyone's like, oh, you know, in the political grand scheme of things, if I'm not conservative, I'm not going to speak up. Then I wasn't at J6, so I'm not going to speak up. And then one day someone's going to come for you, and no one else is going to be there to speak up for you. And I think a lot of people think that it's just these, you know, everyday Americans that we're on the ground zero of the Capitol, and it's happening to someone that it ought to not happen to. I don't understand it. It's what, because he had any ounce of involvement because he was physically there on the Capitol. I was a few miles away. You know, my biggest regret is that I wasn't there. It sounds like a Super Bowl. I wish I was. Like I don't understand it. But yeah, apparently July 1st, and they're purposely. I mean, and I'm sure you guys already talked about this, and your viewers probably know. But he's no longer a part of Club Fed. He'll be at this correctional facility, just like the regular people, apparently, in Connecticut and Danbury. Yeah, and I'm sure it's nothing like the Danbury Outlet Mall, in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So
That part I think is definitely correct. It's not going to be like the Danbury Outlet Mall. There are a few
sure
some
isn't.
people. There are a few people in prison currently who are just, I think, in prison because of their. You mentioned J6 prisoners before, but people who are serving sentences because of their association with Donald Trump, including his longtime accountant for the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg,
Mhm.
Peter Navarro, who was
Yeah.
senior policy and trade advisor for Donald
For
Trump.
contempt of Congress, which is just so silly
Yeah.
to me. I mean, what
Well,
is that?
there
What
have
is
been
that
plenty of
really?
Democrats who have done that, but
Yeah,
we'll come.
Biden.
Yeah, no, we'll come back into this in a second. Sponsor right now, Bear Creek Arsenal. Do you shoot, Gabrielle? Are you somebody who likes guns?
Ooh, yeah, sure am. Sugar
There we go.
Weasel.
Have
Yep.
you
Get yourself
ever
one.
checked out Bear Creek Arsenal? You gotta see Bear Creek Arsenal stuff.
No, but I'm
They're
not
great.
gonna lie. These promos are pretty nice. Even the first one, I'm like, I better protect my assets.
Yeah,
So
that's
you got
what
me
we
on
do.
board.
That's what we do. We're telling people about the good stuff. Bear Creek Arsenal is amazing. Look, I trained at the agency with guns, and now I'm a guy who tries to just keep as sharp with his self-defense skills as he can, and that means that I'm constantly trying to think of what are the best firearms that I can have. I've got a whole lot of them, but my last 3 firearms purchases have all been Bear Creek Arsenal. They offer a wide range of premium calibers at a fraction of what the competition offers in terms of price. How does Bear Creek Arsenal do it? No middleman fees, no running it up because you're just paying for some name that you've heard of before. With Bear Creek Arsenal, it's all about what you're getting, what you're shooting. Incredibly accurate, durable, well-constructed firearms, all made right here in North Carolina. I've seen the facility myself. Learn more about Bear Creek Arsenal at bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use promo code BUCK to get 10% off your first order. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use promo code BUCK for 10% off your first order. You think they're gonna? I mean, I hate to tell you this, but I think you're wrong. But I'll ask you anyway. You think they're gonna replace Biden? You're on the. You know, my co-host Clay says this. They're gonna replace Joe Biden at this stage. Who's gonna replace him? That's what I
Who's gonna
think. This is
replace
crazy
him? I
talk,
know.
but
It's that's fine. Hey, Buck, I want it to be crazy talk. I want it to be so crazy that it's not true. How about that? You know
there
what
we
I'm saying?
go. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
sure.
happy as a claim with that case. But I appreciate that maybe I'm not the only one thinking that. And you know what? It's not that I'm saying it's going to happen, right? It's not that I'm saying it's going to happen, but at the end of the day, the reason that the reason for the season is elections. It's election season, and the reason for the season of this country killing itself is because and and I don't mean this out of like disrespect at all, but it's just that we don't think that these things are going to happen to us. And it doesn't mean that I know it to be true, but I'm going to stay vigilant at all times and assume that, what's the best case scenario, right? Like the best case scenario is that you're prepared for the worst case scenario at all times. And I don't think that's a play out of the Democratic book that would be left unwritten. I think it's in the book for sure. And maybe it's not this election. Hopefully it's not this election, right? I think that Trump has done a great job this first term and has a lot of things that he would like to finish through. And obviously he wasn't perfect, as no person is. And there was a lot of, I don't know, can you say crap here? I don't know. But there was a lot of stuff in the swamp, and there's still a lot of work left to be done. And it doesn't even just end with him. Like I'm one of those people where like I said, I love Trump and I had a great time working for him. And I definitely got to see like a direct difference between working apolitical, none of your viewers have a heart attack, but apolitical during Obama, and being able to compare that perfectly alongside a Trump presidency. And it was night and day, even just by the pure characteristics of the people that were in the building. And so there's a possibility that these things happen, and I'm going to prepare for worst case scenario at all times. And even if someone else is brought in, Trump did a great job, and he still is speaking for a lot of people, and a little relentless. So, it's like a basement campaign. What's the difference between a basement campaign and someone else just pulling the strings? I don't see a difference. The only difference I really want to see is election integrity. I think that's our biggest issue, 1000%. I think it's great that we're registering people to vote. I think it's great that we're telling people to vote. I think it's great that conservatives are finally waking up and trying to, indulge themselves into the culture war. But at the end of the day, when I first started in journalism, I was in Broward County. I'm in Tampa, Florida right now. When I was in Broward County, it was DeSantis and Andrew Gillum. I remember that was like a really high stake, gubernatorial race. And at that time, there was no reporters there. There were hardly any people on the left or the right. And there was the voter machine sitting in a room full of glass windows. And when I arrived, they started, not because they knew I was a journalist, but when people started arriving, Laura Loomer was there too. Like people started arriving, then the poll workers were putting up pieces of paper, newspapers, whatever they could to cover up all these glass windows so that we as the free people who are voting can't even see how these things are actually being processed. At the same time, voter registration or voter machines were caught on fire. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they actually were. And there were ballots left. I'm sure you remember this, Buck, but there were a bunch of ballot boxes left empty, but I don't know what they were going to do with them, left at the nearby airport in a rental vehicle, unmanned. So, at the end of the day, my point being, yes, it's great that we talk about these things, get people into the culture war. But at the end of the day, even with, getting people to vote, getting them to register, I don't believe anything until I freaking see it. And I haven't seen anyone count ballots.
All right.
And that's our problem.
Where should people go to follow Story Time with Gabrielle Cuccia, which covers a lot of topics very fast.
Hey, you know what? I can talk about anything, Buck.
People refuse to believe that I'm from New York because they say that I don't sound like it and I don't have a New York cadence. Gabrielle,
look, thank you. I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably the calmest I've ever been in an interview because, you make me feel really calm, So I felt like I was like smoking a cigar in the middle of the Sopranos episode,
That's
Something
the
like
idea.
So,
we want people to be calm and relaxed on
this
the
is as calm as I could ever be. No pulse. But you
Well,
guys can find me on, it's Gabby Gabs. It's _ Gabby Gabs on Twitter and on Instagram. And then I post my videos on DC Drano's YouTube account as well. So take a gander if you feel
wonderful. Give Drano my regards. He's a good man.
I will.
Gabrielle, thanks for hanging out with us. Good to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you. Appreciate it.